Good morning, everybody. I have the honor of introducing two incredible Orthodox women. I'm not even going to tell you the story of how we became connected, but I really feel like God put me in this room to introduce you both. So you guys are in for a treat because Cynthia Damaskos is a functional nutrition and lifestyle coach whose aim in life is to get her fellow Christians healthy and living the lives God created them to live. She's the author of Holistic Christian Women and the podcaster and blogger at Holistic Christian Life. Living in Indiana with her husband, she continues a journey that began 7 years ago to reverse her own health issues, which has her feeling better at 57 than she did in her 40s. I mean, you're going to have to tell me that secret. She has a private practice teaching clients around the world how to change their lifestyles to improve their health, reach their goals, and prevent and turn around their symptoms. Cynthia brings her expertise to us today. And next to her is Molly Sabourin. Sabourin. Mm-hmm. She is the author and podcaster for Ancient Faith Ministries, as well as a wife of 20 plus years to her husband, Troy, mother of 3 teenagers and 1 young adult. About a year ago, Molly found herself feeling overwhelmed and listless after a particularly challenging season of her life and stumbled onto a documentary called Minimalism. This film chronicled the choices of individuals who walked away from excess and compulsive consumption and embraced simplicity and intentionality as a way of life. The freedom of peace they discovered in the process was so inspiring, she began her own journey towards simplicity. Decluttering her home led to the decluttering of all the areas of her life, therefore reducing stress and increasing peace and joy and productivity. Molly is passionate about pursuing and helping others pursue a more simple and calm existence. So we are delighted to have them both here today. Welcome.
Thank you, Sylvia. And then what Molly and I didn't put in that bio is that when we came together, first she was working with me on Holistic Christian Life, and then together we created Filled with Less, which is our ministry. And that's where we have our podcast on ancient faith called the Filled with Less Show. And we're coming out with new publications and all kinds of stuff. We have courses and a membership, and we really have a lovely ministry just helping people live more intentional lives and living with a peaceful mind, a healthy body, and a productive life. So that's what we do. So today we are going to talk about bringing the liturgy into your life. And first, Molly's going to give us a scenario of what it could and couldn't look like.
So I'm just going to give you like a typical Sunday morning, see if this is familiar to you at all. But maybe you're running a little bit late. Maybe there's been a few squabbles in the morning about who's taking too long in the bathroom. Somebody's can't find something to wear. But eventually you make it to the commute to church. And as you're driving, your mind is humming with activity. So you have a big presentation at work tomorrow. You're not quite prepared for it, so you're just kind of rehearsing that in your mind. You also know, you looked and you're like, okay, there's 0 groceries here. I've got to do some meal planning. I got to stop at the store. And that kind of opens a Pandora's box of all the other things at home that you have not done. The laundry is out of control. There's some house projects. And you start thinking that same thing. I am so behind. I'm so behind. I'm so behind. On top of that, there's some tensions with somebody at work. You know tomorrow's going to have to be a difficult conversation. Your stomach's kind of hurting because you hate confrontation. And then there's these worries just hovering around your mind. You're like, why is my teenager so distant, sullen? What is this thing on my arm? I didn't see this mole yesterday. Like, is it new? Is it melanoma? Is this something I should be concerned about? You heard an update on the war, and you're like, what's that going to lead to? What's happening with that? So this is kind of going around in your brain, and you finally pull up into the church parking lot. You open the door just as liturgy's starting, and you hear, "Blessed is the kingdom of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." So liturgy has begun. And physically, you are there. You are present. Your body is there. You showed up. And now you have some choices to make. Your choices are either to engage with the spiritual struggle of actually participating in the liturgy, or to allow all of those thoughts that are just roaming around in your mind just to keep going, to distract you. I know I'm faced with that choice every single Sunday, and truth be told, I don't always win it. There have been plenty of times that I have phoned it in. I've checked liturgy off my to-do list. Okay, church, done. Get on to the next thing. And I just enter that Monday with the same stress, the same anxiety, just this treadmill. Other times, however, I am more intentional about showing up to liturgy aware of its significance and really hungry to pray with my whole being, using all my senses as much as I possibly can. Where I'm ready to offer thanksgiving, I'm ready to hear and contemplate hymns, and to really lay aside those earthly cares. And on those Sundays, I do experience the beautiful fruits of that labor, not just for the 2 hours I'm there, but it continues with me throughout the week. What we want to talk about today is that we do have an incredible opportunity every single week to immerse ourselves in these very nourishing and sacred rhythms that we find in the liturgy. And not only to immerse ourselves in them there, but to continue to carry those liturgical rhythms into our homes and our offices and our schools and our communities. But really it's up to us to be intentional about, first of all, recognizing the significance, to feast on these beautiful gifts, so that we can in turn begin to embody those gifts and to share them with our family members and our neighbors. So Cynthia's going to talk to us just real quick about what are these rhythms that we want to bring home with us.
So I'm really going to sing to the choir here for a little bit, because we know what our liturgy is about. It's about beauty. It's oftentimes the most beautiful part of our life, the most beautiful part of our day, from the order of everything, right? A lot of our homes, I can speak from experience, a lot of our homes may not be the cleanest, may be a little chaotic, may be a little cluttered, but we come to our churches and they are in order, because our God is a God of peace, not chaos, right? Icons, beautiful candles, the flowers, the music, the poetry, the hymnography, beautiful conversations, and how we talk to each other at church is a little bit different, right, than maybe what we hear at home, the way some people talk to each other at home, right? We don't talk to each other like that at church. Beauty always leads us back to Christ. Beauty is never there for the sake of just being beauty. Beauty always brings us back to Christ and turns us towards the Creator. Stillness. For so many people, coming to liturgy or coming to a church service is the only time when they actually stand still and be still, right? So powerful. And it's stillness of the body, but it's also a stillness of the mind that we're trying to cultivate. We're going to talk about that a little later on, about how to cultivate that muscle that can help you create stillness in your mind, how to pull your mind back when it wanders from worship. It's so important. I love this quote by Father John Breck. But as we speak out of that stillness, we also listen. We listen for ineffable words of love and compassion, of healing and life. These are words God addresses to each of us without exception, and he does so in the silence of the heart. There he makes known the infinite depths of his love for us, his passionate concern to lead us from brokenness to wholeness and from death to life. This doesn't just have to happen during church when we're still. We can build this into our days and into our weeks and our lives, which is what we're going to talk about. Gratitude. Of course, the liturgy is centered around the Eucharist, and the definition of Eucharist is thanksgiving. It's gratitude from the moment we get there to the time we leave. We're in thanksgiving. Father Thomas Hopko says the spiritual person is one who is grateful for everything. He is the one who receives everything with thanksgiving and who knows that he has nothing except what he has received from God. The benefits of gratitude, the science behind gratitude is like 100-fold, how it can change our lives. And again, we'll be talking about that later when we talk about bringing this home into our lives and out of the church. And then structure. Structure's so important. For many of you who know as children, routine, structure, it helps builds a child's self-confidence, gives them comfort. Well, as adults, we haven't grown out of that. As adults, our brains and our bodies still thrive on routines and rhythms, and we get that in the church. We get that during liturgy. I love that I can go to an Orthodox church, any jurisdiction, and I fit in. I know what to expect. I can go anywhere in the world to an Orthodox church, and I feel like I know what's going to happen, and there's this comfort there, like I belong, right? You walk in and you belong. It's not reinvented every week. It's a stabilizing force. So, but what about Monday through Saturday? Are we bringing that into our lives? And we can do it, and we're going to talk about that. So beauty, stillness, structure, and gratitude is what Molly and I are calling the sacred rhythms. It's something that's a continuum. It happens during liturgy, it happens during our services, but it can also happen during our life, both in preparation for the liturgy, but then also as a continuation into our lives. And I love what Bishop Callistos Ware of blessed memory says. The divine liturgy is not an end, but a beginning. Those words, let us go forth in peace, are not a comforting epilogue. They're a call to serve and bear witness. In effect, those words, let us go forth in peace, mean the liturgy is over, and the liturgy after the liturgy is about to begin. And Father Alexander Schmemann took this another step forward. It is a movement of Mount Tabor into the world, every day, every hour. And I apologize, I should say blessed memory too, because we recently lost him. Every day, every hour is of importance. Each day is a step in this movement, a moment of a decision and witness, a time of ultimate meaning. So Molly is going to bring that home to you.
So we have a temptation, at least I do, as an Orthodox Christian, to kind of compartmentalize our faith. So Sunday is my church day, and then there's my work week, and so there's this disconnect in between. And we don't always associate how we worship with how we live out the nitty-gritty details. I mean, I'm talking about how we manage our homes, how we work, how we take care of our minds, bodies, and souls. Recently, we had my own parish priest on, Father Anthony Saunders, on our Filled with Less podcast, because I wanted to explore this. I feel like, I've been Orthodox 25 years, and I still sometimes feel like I wasn't getting everything out of the liturgy that I was supposed to. I wasn't prepared for it, or I wasn't recognizing the significance as I should. So I wanted him to talk to us about the significance of divine liturgy for my everyday life. And he said to reach that significance, ideally, we are preparing for liturgy, not just that. I mean, how many of us just kind of like, I know I do, busy, walk in the door, you're there. And he's talking about the preparation begins all week long. Like you have the fasting, you have the stillness, you're preparing your mind to receive what you're going to receive in liturgy. And in turn then, while we are at liturgy, we are actually practicing living our days, so that instead of running parallel to each other, these two parts of our existence, they're actually completely intertwined. So that liturgy is actually an extension of our weekly lives, and our lives are always an extension of the liturgy, and one is always feeding the other. It's a continuous loop. And the benefit of this is twofold, really. Not only do we learn from liturgy how to structure our lives in ways that are very healthy and stabilizing, but then our own health and stability, these become a profound gift then to our communities and to our family members. And this was something I think the last 2 years, especially with COVID, that I started to see from liturgy. Not only was it a beautiful, ancient form of worship, I mean, these had real tangible tools for well-being in a time when everything else felt like it was out of control. So let's talk about these rhythms, but for our own, bringing them home, so we don't leave them at church. So let's talk about beauty first. So recently, we did an akathist of Thanksgiving at our church. It was a Tuesday night. It was my favorite service. And I'd actually begged my priest, I was like, can we do some of these like once a month? And so he said, okay. So we did one on a Tuesday. It was rainy and cold. It was dark, and I just wanted to go to bed, but I was the one that asked. So I was like, that's rude. So I was like, I'm going to go. So I get dressed and go, and I'm like ducking in because it's raining, and I open the door, and it's like quiet. Hardly anybody's there. It's warm. All you have this like flickering in front of the icons. There's incense moving around. And I was so struck, like you could see literally the storm like raging outside. And here was this refuge from the storm. And I was so struck by it. And it made me think about what kind of refuge am I creating in my home? If my home, St. John Chrysostom described our homes as little churches. And here we have this beautiful example of a haven from the storm outside. And it made me think about my house. Am I continuing that feeling into my home? So what does that look like? What does it mean to have a beautiful home as we understand beauty in the church? So the beauty that I'm referring to is not necessarily like a Pottery Barn catalog, although I love to look at those. But that's not what I mean here today. So beauty, it's beauty not for its own sake, as Cynthia talked about. This is a beauty that is actually very challenging. It's a challenging beauty. Aidan Hart, who's an iconographer, he wrote an article in the Orthodox Art Journal on the nature of divine beauty. And he said, so divine beauty reveals something much greater than ourselves. It is sublime rather than comfortable. It possesses a shock element, disturbing and awakening us. It unites seeming opposites. It is attractive and terrifying. It is homely and adventurous. It invites and sends. It is measured and immeasurable. It is pleasurable and demanding. So for myself, when I think about what that means in my home, what kind of beauty does all that? A lot of iconography and incense in my home. I have icons everywhere. My icon table is a prominent area of my home, and I try to take care of it. I try to spend time there often, multiple times a day. I try to fill my home with books that are spiritually edifying or good literature, things that draw me to be better, not to get complacent, not to get spiritually lazy. If you come to my home, you'll see I have poems on my refrigerator. I have a chalkboard next to my desk that I write things that make me think, just to keep me from being, again, lured into despondency, to challenge me, to love better, to strive better. It means plenty of white space and order. Cynthia talked about the order of an Orthodox church, and that was a journey I went on earlier. When I am cluttered, when there's a lot of stuff, that affects me. It clutters my mind. It adds so much stress to me. And so to take the things out, to simplify, I see white space, I see order, I see calm. I think of hospitality. And most importantly, a beautiful home is a home that is filled with prayer. And you feel that in a home. So Cynthia's going to talk to us today about you all to help you. We want you to go home. Like, we loved Dr. Lowe's talk. It was so inspiring. And we wanted to give you space to actually reflect on that so that you have a plan to take home with you for ways to live the liturgy into your weekly life. So she's going to lead you through some talks on beauty, some questions.
So this is just really quick. This is the workshop part of the workshop. We're going to pause every once in a while, like we are now, and we're going to take a look at the questions. And I just want you to jot down the first thing that comes to your mind about beauty. Is my home a refuge? And that is for myself and my family, but also for visitors who come in. Do they feel like they're coming into the calm from the storm? Does it mirror beauty and order? What do I hear in my home? And what would I like to change, add, or remove? So we're just going to take a couple minutes here. Okay, I think now we're going to go ahead and move on to stillness. And don't worry, at the end, God willing, we'll have a little more time to pull this all together even.
So the next rhythm we want to bring home is stillness. And again, Dr. Roxanne talked about, we all know the importance of stillness. But I think what I didn't realize is that stillness, peace, all of these things aren't just a given because I show up at church, I have a cross around my neck. These are things we have to run the race with perseverance. We have to pursue peace and almost work that muscle and train ourselves to be more still. And liturgy is actually a training ground for growing in that kind of peace and stillness. So for any of us who've shown up with our head full of noise, you know the Herculean efforts it takes to lay them aside. Sometimes it's almost physically painful to pull them back again. And it's a struggle all the way through. And, sometimes I could do it for maybe 5 minutes, maybe 4 minutes here. But as I'm doing that, I'm actually building muscle of stillness that I'm going to need during the week to continue that struggle at home. We have this beautiful tradition within Orthodoxy of hesychism. This interior silence, the state of continual prayer, which is such a treasure for those who are anxious and weary. And through with liturgy, through the prayers and the structure, we're always being guided back to that stillness. When we can't do it ourselves, it's like the church is gently leading us, and you have certain hymns that call us back to it again. Anthony Bloom has a beautiful quote on silence in his book Meditations on a Theme. And he said, "The real silence towards which we must aim as a starting point is a complete repose of mind and heart and will. The complete silence of all there is in us, including our body, so that we may be completely aware of the word we are receiving, completely alert and yet in complete repose. The silence I'm speaking of is the silence of the sentry on duty at a critical moment, alert and immobile, poised and yet alive to every sound, every movement. This living silence is what discipleship requires first of all, and this is not achieved without effort. It requires from us a training of our attention, a training of our mind and our emotions so they are kept in check completely and perfectly." So you may have noticed, and this is something we talk about a lot, anytime you want to do something that's ultimately profitable for your soul, for your body, for your wellness, there's going to be resistance. You want to work out, suddenly there's everything else in the world you've ever wanted to do. You're like, I did want to clean out my fridge. I did want to do that instead. Anything else, when you see it at prayer, you see, like I was talking about, like with the Akathist of Thanksgiving, the minute it's like, and so we're always overcoming. And I think because we see how powerful stillness is and that kind of alertness. And so if there's going to be a temptation or kind of any kind of darkness is going to want to get in the way of that, it's going to be through distraction. To keep us overwhelmed, keep us fruitless, anything but here. And when we are aware that a spiritual battle is taking place for that, and we can set our attention during the day, we can be on guard for that. I think half the battle is just being even aware that a battle's happening. And so I love this description of being alert and alive. So that means when you're alert, you're very aware of your internal life. There's an awareness. And so what we talk about a lot in our ministry is building a bubble of calm around your soul. And when you set your intention to build this bubble of calm, you're very much aware of what is piercing that bubble and what is feeding it. So you begin to be attentive. You listen to your inner life. As you're watching something, is something starting to churn? Is it fear? Or maybe you're having a conversation. Is there judgment? Is something starting to simmer in there? It could be a dialogue of a thought. Maybe there's a thought pattern that came in and you're really talking it through and you're getting mad. You're remembering all over again what they did. And now you're feeling that inner turmoil. And with this kind of stillness, you're able to, at the very beginning, cut it off. So the minute you start to feel it, go to your gratitude. Go to the Jesus prayer. Change directions. Turn it off. Walk away. So you're always putting up boundaries. And you're being very careful about what is piercing your bubble of calm. And then you're also feeding it. So pay attention to what makes it feel good. I know, like for me, like it's liturgy, of course, but then it's after the liturgy. I realize it's the community of people that's really stabilizing for me, to feel needed and part of something. Like I said, I love literature. That always feeds that bubble of calm, quiet, music. So I want more of that and boundaries up to the other things. I like to think of my soul, I'm a very visual person, as a living room. So a place that I can descend to, much like our parish during the storm. I can even go inward to my soul and also find this as a refuge. But in order to do that, first I need to clean out that space, declutter it. I need to clean it, and I need to decorate it with beauty. So just like I would do for my home, I'm going to do within my soul and make it also a place of stillness that I can abide in and find calm and access that no matter what's going on around me. So Cynthia's going to lead you in some reflection questions to think about ways that you may be able to incorporate that kind of stillness into your week.
So can I just say, it's driving me crazy that we're walking in front of them.
Oh, sorry.
No. I used to teach presentation skills in the corporate world a long time ago, and it's like, never walk in front of your display. Breaking my own rules here. So, stillness. Are you intentionally putting it into your life? Whether it's morning, like Dr. Roxanne was talking about earlier, whether it's evening before you go to bed, during the day when you get a moment, maybe you have a child that goes down for a nap. There are all kinds of times when we can intentionally put stillness into our day, which is more important than putting a load of laundry in the washing machine. More important than so many things, because it's self-care. And self-care makes us better people to do the things for the loved ones in our lives and the jobs in our lives and the people that we serve in our lives. It makes us the best we can be for those people. So stillness is definitely one of those difficult things that has to be very intentionally inserted. Now, there are a couple things about stillness that I love. That Molly and I teach a course called 6 Weeks to Sanity, and it's opening up again next May, in case you want to put your calendars down. Two things we teach. Number one, we teach prayerful silence. And this is a way of, it kind of goes along the same science as meditation, but it's with God at its center. And it usually follows prayer and scripture reading. So that although you're calming your mind, you're listening to your breath, you're listening to the birds outside or whatever, and you're trying to, if a weird thought comes to your mind, like, oh, I've got to make that orthodontist appointment, you put it out of your mind. I'm going to think about that in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. That exercise in its own builds a muscle. Your attention is a muscle. So if you're doing this on a morning basis, like every day, and you're learning to put aside thoughts, I found that has helped me immensely during liturgy. When those thoughts come to your mind, am I the only one that's like, oh, I've got to do this and that? And it's like, no, I should be worshiping. I have to stop thinking about that, right? So it's very, very helpful to have that intentional time of stillness and prayerful silence. And then also something that we also teach in our course is my 3-2-1 principle. So this is in the middle of the day when things are really hectic and you just feel overwhelmed or you feel like you need to take a moment. This takes like 2 minutes. First, I do 3 belly breaths where your belly goes out. So your shoulders aren't going up, your chest isn't going out, it's your belly that goes out. You hold it for a few seconds and then you let it whoosh out of your mouth. Do that 3 times and it's going to lower the cortisol in your body. It's going to actually engage your parasympathetic nervous system so that you can relax. And it brings oxygen to your brain so you can think clearly. Then I say 2 Jesus prayers, slowly, maybe with my prayer rope. And then 1 minute of silence. 3, 2, 1. It only takes a couple minutes. And we found that a lot of our students in our course are like, oh my gosh, I use it all the time. It's so helpful. So hopefully that's a tool for you too. So for just a moment, How do you practice daily stillness? Are you doing it intentionally? When are you doing it? And if not, is there any time that maybe I jiggled a little thought of when it can be added in? So we're just going to take a minute for that.
Okay, so the third rhythm I'm going to talk about is gratitude. I love this one. So not long ago, I challenged myself to set my intention to pause before complaining. Just curious. So I got up and said, today I'm going to try to listen to how many times I might naturally complain, and then I'm either going to pause and say nothing or replace it with something positive. And I was shocked by how much I complain. Just about random things. Like I have a friend that I walk with every morning, and I'll meet her with like, "Oh, can you believe this weather?" Or like, or the first thing we talk about in the morning is what hurts. Like, who slept horribly, whose toe has arthritis, and or about gas prices or aches and pains, all the construction. There's construction in Chesterton. I'm like, we're a tiny town. We're like, it's almost like rush hour, and. I was like really surprised because I don't think of myself as like a negative person, but I realized that kind of my default is to fixate first on what's not working, what could go wrong, what could be better. And I started to see like, okay, so this kind of grumbling and complaining, even though it seems kind of innocuous, really becomes a lens through which I view people and all my circumstances. And I wanted to do something about that. I wanted to have a resurrectional lens through which I see people in my life, which is a very different type of lens. So, on gratitude, St. John Chrysostom said, "Let us give thanks to God continually, for it is outrageous that when we enjoy his benefaction to us indeed every single day, we do not acknowledge the favor with so much as a word. And this, when the acknowledgement confers great benefit on us. He does not need anything of ours, but we stand in need of all things from him. In point of fact, thanksgiving adds nothing to him, but it brings us closer to him. For if, when we recall the benefactions of men, we are the more warmed by affection for them, much more when we continually bring to mind the benefits of the Master towards us, shall we be more earnest with regard to his commandments." One of my favorite parts of the liturgy is during the anaphora, and we sing that beautiful hymn, "We praise thee, we bless thee, we give thanks to thee, O our God." Because when I show up and I am wrestling, with anxiousness or resentment, it is a hymn that corrects my thoughts. It gives me the words that I don't feel to help me feel them. And it guides me back gently to that mindset, that resurrectional perspective, and to remind me of God's goodness and faithfulness and mercy, thereby warming my heart and giving me hope and courage. Gratitude, to me, is one of the most powerful tools there is for getting unstuck from a negative mindset. And to intentionally build a habit of gratitude throughout the week really can give us joy, strengthen our faith, and soothe that inner turmoil. So I want to tell you about 3 different ways I have tried to bring gratitude into my week. So the first one is through journaling. I use a Michael Hyatt's, Deacon Michael Hyatt. He's a full focus journal, which I love because it's guided. And so every day it asks me, what are you grateful for? So that's a good way to start. A lot of people do gratitude journaling. But the other way I use gratitude is as a life, like a life rope, when I'm in the midst of a really hard trial and I'm starting to spiral. I'm going under. And to me, gratitude at that point is like a rope that I can start climbing when I really feel like I'm losing it. So, for example, I recently just got back from England. We went to visit my daughter who's studying in Liverpool. So I was with my teenage daughter and my husband, and we were anxious to get home. The airport was crazy. We were in Dublin, flew into Dublin, and it was like a holiday. It was half term, and it was nuts. And I get anxious in airports, and so we went through all the security, and we were ready to be home. We did the bus, we did the first leg, and we're ready to be home. And so we're cutting it close, but we're like, okay, we're almost there. We get up to do our boarding pass, to give our boarding pass, and they won't load on my husband's phone. The Wi-Fi won't come up, and there's a line, and nobody cares. Guess what? Nobody cares if it don't come up on your phone. Nobody's interested in that being a problem. So they're like, go downstairs and print one out. And he's gone 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I look over at my teenage, there's just a tear, and we know. And I text him, and I said, when do we board again? And he just wrote, not today. No flights today. We go to the side. My daughter just is like sobbing. And, oh my gosh. So like, I feel it. Like we're just tired. First of all, then where do we stay? We're so far from home. We end up having to get an exorbitant amount of money for a hotel right there. So we're sitting in silence. None of us can look at each other, talk to each other. My husband feels horrible. He feels awful. And I feel like I'm just so frustrated. We were so close. And we don't have the money for this, quite frankly. We didn't budget. This is not part of our budget, this extra. And so I'm like, okay, gratitude. Somebody needs to be calm here. And I felt again like it was a rope. So I start climbing. Thank you for an amazing trip. Oh, we had a great time in England. It was beautiful. Thank you that up until this point, everything has gone really smoothly. Just climb a little bit more. Thank you that we are healthy right now. Nobody's sick. We are together. We are safe right now. We are safe. All is well right now. Thank you that even though we didn't budget for this, we can get a hotel room. We can do that. And the more I use that gratitude is like a life rope, the calmer I felt. And I could be the cheerleader. And I was like, well, this is what is. We're going to Dublin and we're going to drink a Guinness. This is what's happening. And we did, you know. And there's times when I've been scared even for my loved ones. I've been so scared. And I turn to gratitude. I thank you, God, that you love this person way more than I do. I thank you that I thank you for all the past ways you have been there and been there and been there. And the more I turn to gratitude, it pulls me out of that mire and into a place of calm. The third way I've been trying to use more gratitude is inspired by the 10 lepers story, where you have, he heals the 10 lepers and only one comes back to say thank you. And yeah, and I think about how many times in my life where you're so nervous, right? You're like, maybe it's a phone call that you're dreading and you do it and you get to the other side of it. And what's the first thing you do? At least what I do. I think about the next thing that's freaking me out. And I never pause to acknowledge that either I made it through that thing or it didn't happen. And so I started to try to say, I'm going to go back to my icon corner. Each time, even a tiny little thing comes through, Lord have mercy, thank you. Thank you. So I have a warm connection with one of my family members that just felt good. Oh, thank you for that. It's something I'm nervous about, whatever, just big or small, whatever it is. And I found that the more times I come back and say thank you, the more I'm reminded, oh man, God is super present in this. This isn't random. This isn't out of control. God is here with this. And so the more I give thanks, again, that resurrectional lens comes on and I see the situation completely differently. So gratitude is not just something like a sign at Hobby Lobby, give thanks, it's really, really powerful. So I want to talk to you. Cynthia's going to help us look at ways for you to reflect on being maybe a little more gratitude in your life.
So being a functional health coach, I always like to bring in the physical part of gratitude. Science has shown us, so much, so many benefits to being grateful from our physical health. It lowers our cortisol levels, which lowers the inflammation in our bodies. We now know that inflammation is one of the root causes of disease. So just by being grateful, we can reduce our disease profile. Better relationships in our life. We have more patience, and we can live in the present moment easier. We're more productive at home and at our jobs. We have a calmness about us that creates a better digestion process. We are one of the most overfed, undernourished countries in the world as a population. If we could just slow down, be grateful for that food, make sure that we do the sign of the cross at least before we eat, and just be mindful, we'll be able to absorb those nutrients and be healthier people right off the bat. And that's better for our not only physical health, but also our mental health. So let's talk about gratitude in your life. We're going to have you make some notes. Do you have a gratitude mindset? Do you praise Him, bless Him, and give thanks to Him daily? And how can you incorporate gratitude intentionally into your day? Maybe you don't do gratitude journaling. Maybe it's something you want to try. All the different ideas that Molly gave you, maybe that rope analogy. Maybe that's something where you can put a picture on your refrigerator of a rope and it's going to remind you about that gratitude. So just a couple minutes here.
Okay, and the last rhythm we want to talk about is structure. So as Cynthia mentioned, that's an element of liturgy that is pretty profound, I think, to me as well, is this. It's very stabilizing in an ever-changing world, that no matter how the world changes, the liturgy stays the same. So we have found, just from our members and conversations we've had, that decision fatigue is a real issue. And this is something that, as our choices have really increased exponentially, allowing us to, so like, for example, Christmas is coming up, right? When you think about Christmas shopping for someone you love and you think, well, I could get them anything in the world from any place. There's no limits to where I can shop from. I mean, it makes my mind, it's too much, too many decisions. I can research any doctor, any recipe, any diet, any vacation spot, or try to watch a movie. You know, like you can spend the whole time just trying to pick out what you want to see. Like, there's so many decisions. And then when COVID hit, we are making increased decisions, but from a place of uncertainty and emotional exhaustion. So those kind of questions like, should I work from home? Should I go in? Should my kids be remote learning, or should they go in? Do I go to that party? Or what's the quarantine now? Is it 5 days? Is it 10 days? And research has shown that took a real toll on us and our ability to make decisions, making even small choices like what to have for dinner. Or have you ever been faced with a couple free hours, like on a Saturday, and you're going like, should I clean? Should I work out? Should I go hiking? Everything starts to feel completely overwhelming. So relieving that fatigue by intentionally simplifying our lives and our schedules really is essential for our well-being. So in Renewing You, the Lowe's book, they talk about self-care, and they say when we learn how to tend to ourselves, we protect the very things that restore us most, and we develop a foundation for our flesh that better protects our soul's renewal. Tending to our own needs only makes us more equipped to be vessels of light and to support those around us. So that structure, adding that kind of structure and stability to our life is the very definition of that. It's creating that foundation for our flesh to protect our soul's renewal. One of the greatest gifts of our Orthodox faith is her tradition. So when we get there, we don't have to figure it out. You know, we don't have to become overwhelmed by all the very fluctuating, there's personal interpretations of what worship means or how it looks like. We can just show up and do it. We don't have to make a decision about it. We can show up and get busy doing this work we're talking about, trying to love God better so we can love others better, grow in love, grow in stillness, grow in peace. And in the same way, taking the guesswork out of our schedules gives us that same kind of relief. So if we can open up our planners and then we can see the next right thing already established, done ahead of time. So so first here's my morning routine. Oh, then I can see that I'm going to have class. Then, okay, here's my little 20-minute walk time. I just have one load of laundry to do today. That was on my list, not the whole thing. I spend one load of laundry. I know I have a wind down routine. I have this. When we can see it listed there, we're not having to decide in the moment. Then all of our efforts can be spent on being obedient to the opportunities we are given all throughout the day to grow in love, faith, and patience. So Cynthia's this is where Cynthia, I've learned so much from her about time management and just learning. This was something I really struggled with, and learning the value of a little bit of structure to our day so we're not having to decide over and over again and feel the stress of that.
Okay, so the difference between a calendar and a planner. Do y'all know the difference? Okay. One is reactive. That's where you've got the calendar on the wall. Oh, I've got a dentist appointment here. I've got a meeting there. I've got book club there. And you look at this calendar, and it's things that have come from the outside that people have put on you. They may or may not align with your goals, your priorities, your values. They may be someone else's agenda, not your own. It could be anything out there. A planner, on the other hand, is proactive. It's where you actually design your life. You create your life. Let's say you're on the phone with the orthodontist for one of your children. And they say, we have an appointment available at 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning. How many of you would be like, okay, 8 a.m. Tuesday morning, got it? How many of you would look at your planner and say, 8 a.m. Tuesday morning, am I free? Okay, how many of you, let's say, okay, you're going to be working at 8 a.m. Tuesday morning, so that's a hard no. How many of you may have allotted for that's your Bible study time at 8 a.m. and then going for your walk for self-care? How many of you would be like, oh, yeah, I can do 8 a.m.? You push yourself aside, you push that self-care aside, and then pretty soon, if you don't take charge of your calendar, someone else will. Okay? We have to protect our time. We have to be intentional about it. We have to know the negotiables and the non-negotiables in our lives. So I had Sylvia pass out this time management form. And for some of you, you may be of the mindset where you can kind of use it now and just start jotting on it now. Some of you may be in a mindset where it's like, I'm going to take this home and make some copies, and I might do what's really happening in my life right now, and then maybe keep one for an ideal week. This was actually taught to me by Deacon Michael Hyatt. He teaches this ideal week planning. It took me a year and a half of doing this exercise before one day it totally clicked in. And I realized I had more control of my life than I thought I did. So right off the bat, it seems like there's a lot of things out of your control. But I promise you, if you keep this in the back of your mind and you keep at it, you're going to find white space. You're going to figure out where you can have 30 minutes to do that morning walk, or 15 minutes to do the next task to reach a big goal that you've been wanting to reach, or time to spend with your family that you didn't think you had. So what gets scheduled gets done is my favorite Deacon Michael Hyatt quote. And our God is not a God of confusion, but peace. I said that earlier from 1 Corinthians. So look at your schedules. Do you need to simplify, and where can you simplify? Where can you create that white space, that room to breathe, think, and be still? Where can you let go of excess? And it's so funny, we keep quoting Dr. Roxanne in our presentation. Our purpose in life isn't to do a lot of things, it's to do a few things and do them well. So one of the things I'd like you to do, if you're in the mindset to do it, is to take a look at this and first write in the non-negotiables. Okay, so what should be non-negotiable? A lot of people, their first non-negotiable would be work. I work from 9 to 5, block that out. But I want you to think of it a little bit different. I want you to think about bookending your days. Don't think about the bulk, the middle of the day. Think about the non-negotiable bookends. That starts with sleep. If you're not sleeping, You are going to be physically ill, you're going to be emotionally ill, and you're going to have some mental struggles. Because it's while we're sleeping, and specifically, if we get to bed early enough to where we are sleeping and we're in a deep REM sleep around 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock, that's when your glymphatic system kicks in. Do y'all know about the glymphatic system? It was only discovered about 10 years ago. I guess nods of the heads. The glymphatic system is the time where your brain clears out all the debris from the day, because we have brain cells that are dying all day long. That's when the debris gets cleared out. That's when memories are created. That's when our ability to focus is honed. That's when our quality of life really comes in. They found out that in dementia patients and Alzheimer's patients, their glymphatic systems actually stopped working even when they slept. And here we are all, I'm assuming no one in this room has dementia or Alzheimer's, and yet many of us are inflicting this on ourselves because we're not sleeping. So the first thing I would do is mark at the top when you're sleeping, so you know when you're getting up, and at the bottom, when you're going to bed. Okay? Non-negotiable. Remember I said the body loves routine. We thrive on routine and rhythms. Perfect world, same time to bed every night, same time up every morning. Perfect world. Okay? The next thing I would do is back up from that. So after you know what time you're getting up, that morning routine, that daily rhythm of the prayer, the scripture reading, the devotional, maybe a little journaling, maybe, depending on your life, might include the walk at that time. Morning walks are phenomenal. Morning walks, morning rather than any other time of the day, is when we can set our circadian rhythm and where we can go outside, and even on a day like this, cloudy day, just the light from the rays hits the only part of our brain that is not inside our skull. It's right behind our eyes. And it creates hormones and serotonin that make our entire day better. Helps us make better decisions throughout the day. And you know what happens to that serotonin after you've walked 30 minutes in the morning, let's say? Turns to melatonin at night and helps you sleep better. So if you can, that walk in the morning, I realize a lot of people's lifestyles won't allow this, but if you can, this is awesome. Okay? So that's the next thing I would put in, is some kind of non-negotiable. After you wake up, here's my morning self-care routine. And then at night, before you go to bed, here's my wind-down routine. You know, it may be something simple like I don't want to tell you when I go to bed, but maybe I should. So I go to bed at 8:30 because I want to be asleep by 9, because I know I need 9 hours of sleep. So I back it up from there. Okay, I know how much sleep I need. I know what time I have to get up, so I back it up from there, so I know when I have to go to bed. I start half an hour early at 8:30 because that's when I get ready for bed, brush my teeth, put hand lotion on, put lip balm on, get my book, and say my prayers and everything, and I want lights out at 9. So, you know, it's really working with yourself, knowing what you need. So that's the next thing I would do, is a wind-down routine. And then in the middle, then put your work day. Put your meals. Eating is so important, and how many people forget to eat because their day gets away from them, right? Taking control, being intentional is so, so important. So that's what I'd like you to think about. You can either do it now, or you can jot down on the worksheet what healthy rhythms and routines are in my life already. How can I book into my day and provide a scaffolding to support a liturgical life? And I love that word scaffolding, because you know what? When the world goes nuts and a pandemic hits and everything else that's going on and can go on, if you have that scaffolding, you have something to cling to. All right? So we all want that scaffolding in our day, and we want that scaffolding to become a habit. And do I have boundaries in place around my negotiables and non-negotiables? This is going to help you know when to say no. Okay, I know many of us are people pleasers, and we don't want anyone to think bad of us, and we don't want to let anybody down. And yes is the first thing that comes out of our mouth. So we don't have time today, but Molly and I, that's what I just said. Molly and I do retreats. We travel around the country. We love to do this, visit churches. We go much more into depth on this. Plus, I talk a lot more about physical health and medicine and nutrition and that kind of thing during our day-long retreats. We would love to come to your parishes and visit you. And we're giving an O-Camper special on what we normally charge for retreats. So if you're interested, contact me. But it was lovely to be with you guys today, and the time just flew by quickly. I didn't realize that we've actually gone over, and you probably want to take a break before the next thing. So any last-minute questions that you might have?
If you have any questions, please, I will try to meet you as much as I can.
Thanks, Elijah. We have a question.
I feel like sometimes when you have a family with small ones, the intentionality of the structure and the piece, it feels like so much more hard work because you're constantly faced with, you can't just be like, oh, the baby needs to be fed now, or oh, there was an accident over here. Even though I said I was going to do this now I must do this. So there's that necessary reactivity that's just built into having a busy family with small children. And so I think the hard part for many moms is holding on to and not feeling like it's so effortful every day to make that structure.
Right. You are in a tough season of life right now, for sure. And there are going to be different seasons and times when you can implement more of this and less of this. But I turn this over to the woman who has 4 children.
I think the beautiful thing of what we always want to do, I always feel like, is give me a formula. This is how this person's doing it. How are they? I'm going to do it like that. But this is why the morning, if nothing else, what's so beautiful about a morning routine is that you are attaching to discernment, to the Holy Spirit, who will help you find, because really, the ironic thing is, the structure of your morning routine is what's going to help you be more flexible to let go of expectations throughout the day. Because there's going to be, especially with parenthood, there's a time when it's very important to learn to let go, to be really flexible, to pivot. And so your self-care, so maybe your routine will be very, I think that morning, the bookend is really, really important so that you can stay peaceful through that. You can understand that so many things are being burned out of you. Like when you are in that period of time, I always, talk about like a child spills milk the first time. You're like, what? The 30th time you wipe it up and you don't think about it. And that's kind of what motherhood does. It's like in terms of dispassion and like calm. And then there's a season of time when they grow up and you don't know what to do with yourself. And who am I? And then that's when these kind of structure, now you can do structure in a different way that you couldn't do before. So each season, so it's really recognizing what season you're in, not comparing it to anybody else's season, and using that morning time to gain the discernment, help me find balance. I really feel like the thing about faith and orthodoxy, all these things, is health, stability, wholeness. Yeah.
Can I just say something that I think carries through any of the seasons if you have a child?
Yeah.
That you have never been the parent of that child at that point in time any other time.
Right.
And that's amazingly free. It's amazingly authentic.
Yeah.
And I think it puts us squarely where we are in the Orthodox faith.
Right.
Because we are the steward. And we lose, Western society wants to make us think we control, and if you put this in, you'll produce this outcome. And that's not. And all these wonderful quotes and things is appropriate. But, and you say it to the kid. I mean, I'll be saying that to my kid this whole life. Because then what that opens up is the ability to say, And we'll figure it out and we'll go forward. Because that's also what all these quotes are telling us and what our faith is telling us.
Yeah, there's a real humility to almost starting each day with, I don't really know what I'm doing. And
but the child also wants to know that there are, and whatever age, whatever person, that there is a structure, there is a boundary, and we have a place to go, and we are not left alone here. We may feel like we're not even on that rope to grab onto and claw up, but you only start by recognizing where you are, and you taught that child that. So.
And you're touching on something that I love here too, is that we are also the examples for our children. At some point, they're going to see that mom or dad has their quiet time in the morning, and that's when they read their scripture, and that's when they say their prayers, and that's a non-negotiable in their life, and I'm not allowed to come knocking on their door or whatever. I mean, obviously, when they get to a certain age, I'm not allowed to come knocking on their door until whatever time, right? Or mom or dad are going to bed at a certain time, and we're not going to stay up and watch movies all night and watch Netflix or whatever together. So you're an example to your children, such a good example, when you're living intentionally with a structured day and doing all these things. Yeah. They have to be to a certain, age first. I've had people in our course say, Cynthia, I use your 3-2-1. I tell my 5-year-old that they can't come into the bathroom for whatever, and I go in the bathroom, close the door or closet or whatever. I do the 3-2-1, and then I come out and I'm fine. and the child gets used to it, right? Okay, mom's in the bathroom. I don't know why. But, or the closet or whatever.
I'm just mindful of the time, so I think if any of you would like to head out to lunch, and if you don't mind taking maybe one or two more questions. I know I have a question, and I can ask it after.
I have many questions, but I won't ask them. I just want to say thank you. I feel mothered. Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
I do have one question. This is probably going down the rabbit hole, but I've been married for 20 years, and so into your first category, beauty. Mm-hmm. I'm a thrower. He's a keeper. Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm pretty sure a lot of that happens in our household. Mm-hmm. So the clutter definitely makes me very anxious, right. And just I influence the entire house. How do we reconcile this? Because I have to close his study,
right? Not to look
so
at
we
it.
Don't battle at home.
So with intentional living, you're learning to release what you can't control and focusing on what you can. Okay, so what areas of the house are yours only? So my car, my nightstand, my closet, my workspace. I'm not trying to change someone else. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything that causes stress. All I'm controlling is what is mine. So my bedroom will be an oasis. Your bedrooms, I'm shutting that door. Because I can't. And I remember when I went through the decluttering process, I wasn't going to tell everybody, okay, everybody gather up. We're doing this because, I didn't know how well I was going to do it myself, quite frankly. So, I think there's so many times we think we can't change because our change is dependent on somebody else. Always start with yourself. Just change what you can. And I promise you, I waited. When I did my decluttering, I did my own room until my daughter came to me and said, hey, could you help me with my room? And then... it's like sometimes we get so excited about a new change and we want everybody on board, and the best thing to do is just quietly live it.
It's living by example again, but I know that doesn't always work with husbands. No.
Right. And you'll just drive yourself crazy, So you want less stress, you want less tension. And so what is the areas I love when if my bedroom's clean, if my office is clean, I feel really good. In my closet, I love when my closet's clean. Those are things that can be a lift, even if no one else is on board.
Thank you very much.